Hey everyone, it's Andre Luck here to share my video for this week where I'm going to talk about running a modern sales organization. So I get the opportunity and I'm fortunate that I get to speak with a lot of sales leaders, revenue leaders on a weekly basis. And just based on what we do every single day, I've really dove into what do the best companies do as it relates to running sales, running their go-to-market strategy. So I'm literally obsessed with diving into that and understanding like what are the tricks, what are they doing, how are they modernizing their processes for a new wave of selling, a new type of buyer that's come into the market, specifically on the B2B side. So I'll hit on some different strategies and tactics that I've seen some of the best do there. I think the first place to start is the buying landscape's changed and buying behaviors and consumer behaviors have changed. And when I first came up in sales, and even before that, were a lot of the best practices and strategies that a lot of salespeople use and sales trainers use was built at a time where there wasn't a lot of information that was accessible to the B2B buyer. You had to reach out. You might maybe found information on someone's website, but you had to speak to a salesperson. And I think where we haven't evolved in the sales role yet is we still feel that that person needs to come to us. And we build our processes in a way that people need to come to us and speak with us, where the modern consumer now can get their own information. They'll speak to people in Slack groups, on LinkedIn, people in their network, and consume information and get information about a product that way before having to speak to a salesperson. So they're doing their research on their own. There's stats that say that people are 80, 90% through their buyer journey before they even reach out to speak to a salesperson. So we should align our processes accordingly to make sure that we're doing that. But there's also things that relates to profitability and just the economics of the business as you build out a modern sales organization. You need to be aware of, you need to be cognizant of, and think through when you're building that out, and really take a data-driven approach to how you're going about it and make those informed decisions. So this is what I'd say the top, 1 to 2% of companies, at least what I've researched and what I've met with, are doing. So I'll start to talk through some of the big takeaways there. I think the first place to start is, you can't really just blow the whole thing up and start over, especially if you're a mature company. You already have processes in place, you already have strategies and tactics in place. So some of this may be where's the biggest opportunity to make an improvement or optimize for right now and then build as you go. But if you're starting from scratch, so probably at an advantage because you could start it and build it literally the way that people consume information and buy now versus you have this process, whether it's a fully mature, built out sales team and marketing processes that you have to kind of unwind and make sure as you build it back together, it all makes sense and it's aligned. And sometimes that can get really messy. So if you're brand new, you're starting off in a really good spot. But it all, as with anything, it starts at the top. It starts with leadership. So whatever the strategy is that you're looking to implement, if you're running a sales team, if you're the head of sales or you're part of that revenue leadership, it starts at the top, and there has to be executive sponsorship. There has to be executive buy-in and alignment with your CEO and then your CFO, who's controlling the money and resources that you spend and the investments that you're making into growing your revenue. So there has to be alignment there, and there has to be buy-in. And then when it relates to strategies or tactics or processes, there needs to be alignment there as well, because there could be a process that you want to implement and execute, but if at the top or at the executive level they feel different, that's not going to work. And at the end of the day, they're going to win. So you need to make sure that the processes that they're pushing down from the top, you understand, you ask questions, you know why we're making the decisions that we're making, but also making sure that there's alignment there. And then I challenge sales leaders now to start learning more on the business side, the finance side. I spoke with someone recently. They're stuff looking to get into more management and leadership, but they went to get their MBA so they can learn more about the business side and the finance side, so they can bring that back if they stay within sports. But understanding how that works, and when a company is looking to make investments and spend their money in a profitable way, knowing how they go about doing that. So I also talked to a recent SVP also that said, they have a very close relationship with their CFO. And I'm like, make sure you keep that because they are involved in everything now, where before it was more, here's something I want to do as a head of sales or a revenue leader. As long as it made sense, the CFO would sign off on it. But CFOs, they don't necessarily understand the go-to-market and revenue strategy, but they're way more involved. So the more you could bring those two together, and then for yourself, understand, what are the numbers that they're looking at? What are the finances that they're looking at? When you look at my team, specifically on sales, like what is a good return on that investment? How many salespeople should we have? How much should we be investing in that department? That all trickles down into compensation and goals and budgets and things like that. and we're running a smart, efficient business that's going to sustain over the test of time. And that's, as you look in the future, that's where a lot of people are moving to, because there is more data, there is more information that people have to make smarter business decisions. So as a revenue leader or someone that oversees a sales team, need to make sure that you're understanding the economics. How are we performing? How is my team performing? And being smart about it, not just asking for money or looking to justify that everything that you're spending on is working. But if it's not working, raising your hand and saying, "Hey, we're investing in this. I think we need to pull back and put our resources somewhere else." Like losing the ego, losing the pride, and doing what's smart for the business, which just takes a different thought process and mindset. So I mentioned it coming from the top, but there also needs to be a presence from your person at the top or someone that's high of influence within the organization. So that could be them actually doing sales and going on sales calls and doing outreach and things like that. That could be them having a presence on LinkedIn. I know a lot are starting to do long form content, podcasts, things like that, like really trying to build a brand at scale. I think it's smart to do, little speaking engagements here and there, one-to-one conversations if it makes sense, if it's the right audience, but you can reach a bigger audience at scale if you're on social and you're consistent with that, and you're showing up on a regular basis, posting content that people could then consume. That gives air coverage to your sales team. That gives air coverage to your organization and just puts a brand out there. So I see a lot more executives, CEOs, presidents, C-level people getting out there and being more present on social. And I think that's a wave that's going to continue to happen, or a trend that's going to continue to happen and lead to success for those sales organizations and for those companies as a whole. So as I talked about, the modern buying journey is where someone is consuming information on their own. But if we've built processes where we're expecting, when we put out information, whether it's marketing messaging or our sales messaging, that we expect people to be ready to purchase. I've said this stat before, but 95% of the target market you're looking to go after is not at a position to buy. So we need to put content out there that just educates them, that shows value, testimonials, case studies, whatever it may be, where they can consume information and start to get familiar with our product, our offerings. And when it's time that they are a marketer, they do have a problem, they do have a challenge that we could solve. They know exactly what we do and know that we're the best fit. So creating more of a demand generation strategy where you're building and creating demand through your content. So really high level, and then starting to hone in on who it is specifically that you all serve and that your product and solution can help out, and starting to create content around that as well. But building it for the long run and using those platforms appropriately for how people make decisions and consume information. So for LinkedIn example, a lot of people are starting to be more present on there as a personal brand, a company brand. If every time we make a post or every time we put content out there, it's asking for something in return or asking for people to buy from us, they're not going to have a lot of success. If you're providing value, no ask, they start to get familiar with your content. They start to understand your values, and the stuff's engaging and educational and even humorous at times. Like those are the brands that are winning right now. Those are the ones that are having a lot of success. And if their founder is present or if their executives are present, that's giving them more inbound leads and more organic traffic that's coming to them based on them being present and out in market and people knowing who they are and who they serve, because they have big followings and big audiences. So that person at the top or someone near the top needs to be bought into the vision, the mission from the sales front, and can't just sit back and say it's the sales team that needs to go out there. It needs to be both. It needs to be your executive who's heavily and highly engaged with your top customers, with your top prospects, and your sales team looking to find and recruit those right people they can put in front of your executives as well. The other thing that a lot of modern sales organizations are looking at is their tech stack. And I think many of them look at it as there's all these new technologies out there and we got to keep up with all the trends, but it's not going to solve all your problems. If you buy a tech stack that doesn't necessarily fit the challenges and problems that you face, then the implementation is not going to follow through and you're not going to have success with that. So you really need to identify, like, where can this help us? What are the challenges we have? If we could get, a couple hours back each week, each month, like what would the problem be that we're looking to solve, and what tool can help us do that? Because now you're finding efficiencies. Now you can focus on the higher return activities, actions, things throughout the day that are holding that right now you're being held back by other things. You can let technology offset that. The biggest tool or most important tool in a sales tech stack is your CRM, because that's where all the data gets ingested. And that should be a tool that everyone at the go-to-market level, your finance person, your marketing person, your sales leader, should all be into that and know exactly how to pull information, pull data, and there's one source of truth as it relates to information so you can make smart business decisions. And people aren't building their own reports out of different dashboards and different systems and things like that. So that's the most important part of the tech stack. But then also underneath that, making sure that those investments make sense. So what are the right ones that solve the problems or challenges that we're facing? And just because another company in your industry purchased something or others are having success with it doesn't mean you have to onboard that as well. That could be a wasted investment. So make sure that you're smart, you're lean with your tech, find ways to consolidate where you can, but really only purchasing and making investments that make sense are going to bring you the ROI that you're looking for. I would say this goes in line with your staffing too. When you're looking to reach high growth targets, the first thing to think is to scale up. And I wrote a post about this on LinkedIn last week, but that is part of it. There could be the time if you do the math and you look and say, all right, if we add on 3 more salespeople based on the data, there is room for growth, there is demand, and we can improve our numbers and our efficiency and our revenues by adding on more salespeople. But a lot of times, what happens is now you add on more salespeople. So all the quality leads that were coming in and going to your top salespeople, that starts to get dispersed across the bigger subset of people. So it could be going to less quality people. So then you start to see your conversion rates start to go down. And you actually could be making less money with more salespeople, depending on the sale that you're in and everything like that. So you really want to analyze that and think through and only scale up and build up your sales team when there's no more room for capacity for those people to take on more. And if by investing and bringing on someone new, you're really looking at opportunities to grow. And I say investments, and I want to make sure to call that out because really, as the CFO, the CEO, you're looking at your business, your investments as a portfolio. You're investing dollars in marketing, you're investing dollars in sales, you're investing dollars all across your go-to-market, and you want to make sure that you're getting the proper return from it. So for me as a sales leader, I want to know what those investments are and what's the ideal return so that I can run a smart unit within my business that's going to lead the company to be sustainable and reach the long-term goals to have long-term success. The other part of a modern tech stack is, or a modern sales organization, part of the tech stack could be automation. So a lot of companies are using AI, whether it's AI outreach, email outreach, things like that. But finding ways to automate and streamline processes that can help you work more efficiently or bring more people to you that are raising their hands, or finding ways to automate different workflows and find different signals that can trigger that someone may be interested and you kick an email out and things like that. So it's different depending on what your sale is and what your process and what your strategy is. But automation is another big part of finding ways to just work more efficiently and being modern and first class and forward thinking with your sales strategy.